This is the Sixth Man Show, an Orlando Magic podcast, with your hosts Luke Sylvia and Jonathan Osborne, covering all things Magic basketball. By fans, for fans. Go Magic. What's going on, Orlando Magic fans? You guys are back with the Sixth Man Show. Today is June 30th, 2022. Jonathan Osborne here, as always, joined by my co-host Luke Sylvia. Luke, free agency is about to be upon us. What is going on?
Free agency, Summer League is a week out from the day you guys are listening to this. It's going to be a lot of fun. It's always a weird high that you get, right? Like we've gone through this crazy month, and then we get done with Summer League, and it's just going to be nothing. It's going to feel like nothing. And that's going to be a real low, I think. But yeah, so I'm enjoying the hectic times that we've had this last month. The rest that's for the week ahead, next couple of weeks really with Summer League extending past there. So I'm looking forward to the next couple of weeks here.
I feel like we got a little taste of that down period after Summer League this week, because it was since the draft, there's been very little Magic news until today. We got the Summer League roster. We got some, Mo Bamba news. There's some other free agency rumblings, which we'll get to in a bit. But earlier this week, I was just like, man, this is taking seemingly forever to get to Summer League. And Summer League is going to be a really exciting, 11 days. And then we really get into, the dead part of the summer where you and I are like, bro, do we have to record a podcast today? Because it just becomes this, 2-month stretch of nothing to talk about, having to make things up. So hopefully, it'll be a little bit better, kind of this offseason. We'll have still a bunch to talk about after Summer League. There's talk that Franz and Moritz Wagner might play for Germany this summer. So that'll kind of give us at least a little bit of stuff to see how those guys are looking. But yeah, just a few more days really, and then we'll basically almost be in Summer League. So that is pretty exciting. If you guys don't already, since the draft, we've had an influx of followers on Twitter and Instagram and, new subscribers on YouTube, but still upwards of 50% of our YouTube viewers are not subscribed to us on YouTube. So if you're watching this on YouTube, just give us a little subscribe, maybe even a little notification bell, so you get an email whenever we post a new video, which is every Monday and Thursday. And if there's an emergency, then we post a episode as soon as we can. But it just really helps out the pod a lot. And if you like what we do, it just makes it a little bit easier. YouTube's like, hey, we know that you like these guys. Here's some content that they put out. So that would really be appreciated, always appreciated. And speaking of YouTube, the Magic released their new episode of All Access, which if you guys have never seen All Access, first of all, what are you even doing? But the Magic, they post a All Access episode once a month or once every few weeks, and it's a behind-the-scenes look at the team and, the front office and everything like that. And, of course, this one was just all about the day of the draft. There's a lot of Paolo in that, one-on-one with Paolo. So it was okay, how did they make this happen without making it incredibly obvious that he was going to be the number one pick? But what did you think of the new episode of All Access?
Well, I would think that maybe that they just took footage from freelancers or people that worked with whatever. I just don't know how that works. Or do they send multiple Magic people? That the video department in Orlando is decent, but as in terms of size, but it's not they don't have an army. So I know, so I'm not sure how they do that. Maybe we can get the inside scoop on how that was shot. But yeah, there's a whole lot of Paolo, obviously, and then some cool cameo from yours truly, being Jonathan, and with a little 6-man show tag there on the lower third. So that's always cool to see. Never will get old.
Yeah, I was there.
But
yeah,
I
don't know if it was the lighting. I don't know what was going on there, but I just looked I just got done crying. Yeah, I don't want people oh my God, this guy was so mad that we didn't take Jabari, that he's crying after the Paolo pick.
People accuse you of crying all the time when it comes to Magic, so whether it's tears of joy or...
Well, and then it's especially Marquis, Magic Marquis, shout out my guy, he always comments on my post-game stuff. I don't know if it's the lighting or whatever, but because like if you wear contacts, especially if you've worn them for a long time, they just make your eyes look super glossy and shiny. So it either looks like you just got smoking the loudest pack of reefer that's ever existed, which I just don't partake in. Yeah. Or it looks like you got done just, crying your eyes out. And it's just like, no, my contacts just make my eyeballs look like that. I can't help it. They always just look super shiny. It's literally a piece of plastic over my pupils to help me see better. So it just, it reflects light weirdly, but,
You were crying.
Tears of joy because
you
Paolo is going to take us to the promised land. Hey, I commented on Paolo's most recent Instagram post, like Orlando winning it all. Of course, not meaning this year. First of all, Paolo pinned it, so shout out Paolo. But just so many haters like, bro, what are you talking about? You're an idiot. Like, be realistic. And I'm commenting back, like, not this year. Obviously, we know that, but like, eventually, he is taking us to the promised land.
Sooner than they may think. All right? Don't be disrespectful.
Hey, did you see the clip of him at the draft where he was asked, would you rather win 10 All-Stars and no rings or 2 rings and no All-Stars? And he said, I would rather have 10 All-Stars. Like, I'm not going to lie, I'd rather have 10 All-Stars. What did you take from that? Because we haven't really talked about that.
That is the transparency that I'm sure the Magic front office loves in terms of when they're in the interview process, personality tests, all those sort of things. He's just an honest guy. And I got to tell you, that's not as an easy of an answer as all these people. You're used to hearing all the cookie cutter answers, okay? And Paolo gave you guys the truth for once when all these other guys have been lying to you. You think that these guys who are ultra, like, in terms of, like, just, they got a little bit of ego to them. Don't lie. We all do. They want to be the best. They want to be recognized. They don't want to be they might not want to be a bench warmer on, a 2-ring team, right? Just in street clothes at the end of the bench. Like, there's no nobody gave him guidelines for what that meant to have that 2 rings and 0 All-Star appearances. It could mean he was a scrub. So I appreciated it. I appreciated the 10 All-Stars. I like that confidence.
That's what I took from it, though. I took it as he just wants to individually be a great player, and he would rather be a really great player in the league and never win a ring than to end up just being like a role player and getting lucky and getting a couple of championships. And right. I appreciate the honesty. Like for real.
It would be different if they were like, would you rather win 2 championships and be like, never make the All-Star team but be almost there? Or would you rather 10 All-Stars? I'm sure that would be a different answer. But there was just no guidelines, so I don't mind it at all. I think that
even with the guidelines, we're getting the same answer out of him, and I appreciate that.
You think so? Yeah, I think that's fine. I don't care.
And you and I have been like diving deep into like Paolo interviews and stuff, like not just like the highlights, which are fun, but like if you want to learn more about the person, like there's a couple of slam videos with him that are really good. There's like this like devilish thing that like Duke basketball did where they basically gave him a camera for a week and just had him walk around like Duke, like in the dorms and in the practice facility and all that kind of stuff. And then there was, I don't know who did it. I feel like it's probably like a group of, kids in the Seattle area that did this, like the Banchero Way, like a mini documentary around him. And it's just really interesting to see Paolo the person. My biggest takeaway from that was he is supremely confident without coming off as cocky and arrogant. Like he knows what he brings to the table. He's incredibly confident in himself, but doesn't come off like sounding like a douche. Let's just call it what it is. It's really easy to come off that way when you're that confident. And to me, he didn't. He comes off as humble, but he knows what he's capable of. And I appreciate that. That's what this team needs. Like, that is an alpha. That is what this team needs.
And let's be clear, like there's different like levels to being arrogant, I think, and confident and all those things, right? One thing my cousin, shout out Elijah, one thing my cousin once told me, because I told him I didn't like somebody, and he was like, why don't you like them? I was like, because they're just arrogant. And he was like, dude, every player in the NBA has some ounce of arrogant to them. In any league, professionally. It just seems that way. And ever since then, I'm like, you know what? You're right. Like, they're the best in the world. They can be a little arrogant. They've been the best their whole life. So I don't mind it either. And it's kind of the same thing with like 10 All-Stars. Like, that can come across maybe the wrong way and maybe a little douchey, but at the same time, I don't care. Like, if you're good and you can back it up, I don't care what you say.
To me, I don't think there's ever an excuse to be arrogant, but I think to be that good at anything, it is almost a requirement. like you do have to have some level of ego to you to say, you know what, like I'm going to put myself above all this other stuff, and I'm just going to work on this because I want to be the best in the world. Not saying like that's right or wrong, but like, you know, you don't want to be a jerk to people. We'll just say that. But no, I think we're saying the same thing about Paolo here, and it's why the Magic drafted him. The Magic have needed a guy like that for a long time, really since Dwight left. Like you need a guy that knows he's the best player on the floor. That's what basketball comes down to most of the time.
And it's not
just
and it's
confidence and the drive to go out there and do whatever you want on the floor.
Right, and it's not a knock, and we'll get into our patron, you know, top tier shout outs here in a second, but it's not a knock to Markelle Fultz or Franz Wagner, but Paolo just has the, like, I know, like you just said, like I know how good I am, and I have no doubt that he's going to be aggressive in that, and we're never going to be saying about Paolo, man, I wish Paolo just knew how good he was. He knows how good he is. He's been the best at every level, and he's had that confidence. That's that story that you texted to us first, and then I heard it in the doc that I watched. I think it might have been Slam, where he talked about how like his first game on varsity as a freshman or whatever it was had like, what was it, something like 13 and 23 or something.
He came in off of the bench and had like 13 points and 23 rebounds.
Yeah, and then
off of the bench.
The next game or whatever it was, in the first half, you said he had 14 or something, and then he started the rest of the season. Yeah,
and then started
off the bench and
every
then started
game for the rest of his entire life. Yeah, they were like, "Yep, this guy is really good," and everywhere he goes, he's just the best player now. So,
yeah.
So another cool thing, aside from us, like the cameo in the All Access video, is we didn't even know this for some reason. But we were nominated for Orlando Weekly's Best of Orlando ballot. We got nominated as Best Local Podcast, which is super,
and there was
super
a hefty list of podcasts. There was like 30 or 40.
Yeah, there's a lot on there.
Local.
So, like, now that we know about it, we want to win. Like, I'm not going to lie to you folks. Like, now that we know about it, we want to win. We wish we knew about it sooner because voting's been going on for like a month. But luckily, it still goes on for another month, and we know we have like an awesome, listener base and awesome, Magic fans that we interact with all the time. So if you guys want to vote for us, which would be amazing, you can go to vote.orlandoweekly.com, or you can go to orlandoweekly.com, and up at the top in their menu, go to Best of Orlando ballot. And then they have a lot of different categories. We're underneath the local notables category. And then after you're in local notables, you can scroll down and go to Best Local Podcast. And to vote for us, you basically have to scroll all the way down. We're third from the bottom on that list. I don't know how they put this together. It's definitely not in alphabetical order. But, that's just where we're at. So if you guys could vote for us, that would be super, super appreciated. All right, we've got a few corrections from last week. Thank you guys for those of you that reached out and pointed it out to us. So first of all, last week when I was talking about Mo Bamba's qualifying offer being $20 million, that is not correct. That is what his cap hold was set to be. His qualifying offer is a lot closer to actually $10 million. The Magic decided today that they are not going to extend the qualifying offer to Mo Bamba, so we'll talk about that in a little bit. And then when we were talking about the contracts, decreasing year after year, I think I said it was like 20%. Upon further review, it's actually somewhere between 5% and 8%, depending on like what resource you're looking at, which is super confusing. And I think for Luke and I, just in our weakness being like the collective bargaining agreement and contracts and free agency, it is because the collective bargaining agreement, in my opinion, is one of the most confusing things ever in the history of the world. Like, it's not set up for like the common man to just like, oh, okay, this totally makes sense.
Right.
Like, you've really got to spend a lot of time on it.
It's a contract, right? It's a legal binding contract things, and that just all. I think this is just a disclaimer for off-season things coming up. Feel free to like comment and be like, oh, you guys got this wrong. But at the end of the day, like, I'm not going to lose sleep over it because we both know, like Jonathan and I both know and put it out there, like, we're not cap experts. We're not Keith Smith. Shout out Keith Smith. Like, we're not him. So is what it is.
We're just doing our best. Like, honestly, like we're
and
trying
those
to
of you
better.
those of you that are proud of you.
Those of you that like really are, like, if you want to come on the show, like, let us know, because like that is actually would be like possibly a good resource. Like, if you really know your cap stuff, it would be helpful. But yeah, we are doing our best. We're trying to learn more about the cap stuff, but it is incredibly confusing, and we're doing our best to bring along the information to people. Last thing here, Luke, before we get into the Mo Bamba conversation, some more of the free agency stuff, we do have a brand new Patreon this week. Shout out PV in the Mix, our newest patron. PV, baby. We shout out all of our new patrons on every single episode. So if you guys are interested in getting a special shout out like that on the show, you can find us at patreon.com/the6man show. We have 3 separate tiers. We're doing things like t-shirt giveaways. We always do, random giveaways throughout the year. So you guys will have opportunities to join that kind of stuff as well. If you're in our All-Star or Hall of Fame tiers, you also have access to our Discord channel. We're trying to get that up and running. It's pretty active, but definitely the more the merrier in that channel. And then we also shout out all of our Hall of Fame tier patrons every single week, and we're going to go ahead and do that right now. Shout out Court Cousins, Armin, Carson Tulo, Jonathan Borges, Magic Player History, Wiffle, Ryan Singh, The Distract, Pierre A, Dylan Holden, Mr. Mikey, Lil Penny, BRBS Creative, Drum, Danimal, Dutto15, Bobby Skinner, and Nate Donley. You guys are the real MVPs. You guys are in the Hall of Fame. Luke, today, Kobe Price, friend of the podcast of the Orlando Sentinel, he reported that the Magic were not going to extend the qualifying offer to Mo Bamba, effectively making him an unrestricted free agent at the start of free agency. Now, this has been confirmed by Bleacher Report, by Keith Smith, who we just shouted out a second ago, who's now working for Spotrac. Congratulations, Keith. That dude knows the cap better than anybody I know. Definitely deserved. But yeah, Mo Bamba is set to be a free agent. And I tweeted out right after that happened that this doesn't necessarily mean that Mo is gone. It could mean more that they're working on a multi-year deal, and they're going to agree on that at the start of free agency. Because with the qualifying offer, basically what that is, if you don't sign someone to an extension on their rookie scale contract and they come to the final year, after that, or in the, rather the, what is this going to be? This is going to be Mo's 5th year that he's going into, was in the 2018 draft, so 18, 19, 20, 21, 22. So yes, this would be the 5th season for Mo Bamba. You can extend the qualifying offer, and I think that just pertains to lottery picks. Again, folks, foggy on the CBA here. I'm doing the best that I can. We're trying to wing this, but essentially what the qualifying offer is an offer that the team can extend to the guy coming to the end of his rookie scale contract, and then at that point, if he signs that, it's just a 1-year deal. At the end of that 1 year, he becomes an unrestricted free agent, and the team basically loses like all control that they have over the guys outside of his bird rights. Your bird rights is essentially what allows you to exceed the salary cap to re-sign a player to your team. So if Mo Bamba would have got the qualifying offer from the Magic and signed that, essentially we'd be going through this all over again next year.
Right.
You cannot, with the qualifying offer, sign them to a multi-year deal. You have to do that outside of the qualifying offer. So them not giving that to Mo could mean that they're trying to work out a multi-year deal to keep him here long term. It also could mean that they're going to try to sign him to some kind of sign-in trade and trade him elsewhere. Or it could mean, hey, it's been nice knowing you. Best of luck out there. And he could just be a free agent and the Magic aren't interested in re-signing him.
Yep. And Orlando Magic Daily, Philip Rossman-Reich just tweeted out essentially that the deadline was, 5 p.m. Eastern today as far as, tendering that qualifying offer to Mo Bamba so that he will officially become an unrestricted free agent for, obviously free agency. So it's, I read some reports, I believe maybe yesterday or a couple days ago where Bamba, it was apparent that Bamba is interested in a multi-year deal. He wants to stay in Orlando from what we've heard. He wants to stay there for, a few years. So I think that that's something that we can look at, and it's a reason why Jonathan is also alluding to kind of essentially that's why the qualifying offer did not get offered there today. So with that being said, we will kind of just wait and see. As you guys are listening to this, maybe the news is already broke as to what the direction is going to be with Bamba. If you're listening to this later on Thursday, who knows? I'm interested to see kind of what happens. If they've got something in place, things, I feel like it would happen quickly, right? Jonathan, would you agree that, if they've got something lined up, it would probably happen sooner rather than later? And if we kind of hear nothing and it just keeps happening for a little bit, then we might start to think like, maybe Bamba's walking.
Yeah, I think if something happens, it's going to happen relatively quick, between the two, just because, it's like the culture here, everything seems like he wants to be here. Like, we heard that Paolo is getting number 5, and then we instantly hear that Mo Bamba is changing his number to 11.
Right.
I feel like if he didn't want to be here, then maybe he doesn't even talk to the team about that. Like, if he knows he's going to be somewhere else, he's going to re-sign somewhere else. Because these conversations don't just all of a sudden happen the last couple of days. Like, these are conversations that have probably been going on, like, close to a year. Like, last year, there was probably talk about, are the Magic going to sign him to an extension? And, his agent, Greer Love, probably reached out to the Magic, and they're like, no, we're just going to kind of let it ride out. And then, the parties, kind of wait until towards the end of the season to start talking about this. But there has been at least some communication going on for quite some time. This isn't something that the Magic woke up and decided today. So, yeah, I would expect if Mo is going to stay that something happens pretty quickly. That's usually the case. If you're going to stay with the team that you're currently with, usually it happens pretty quickly. There are other instances, especially in terms of like restricted like free agency, where like guys will kind of explore and sign an offer sheet, with another team. Like Tobias Harris, I'm pretty sure years ago when he entered restricted free agency, I think he signed an offer sheet with the Kings, and then the Magic matched it to keep Tobias here. I could be remembering that incorrectly. But you've also seen like unrestricted free agents like go out, explore all those other teams, and then decide, you know what, I want to stick right where I'm at. So, but I would say it probably happens pretty quickly. There's also been reports that like the Raptors, Knicks, Lakers, Bulls, Rockets, Heat, and Timberwolves are expected to be interested in Mo Bamba. Now, a few of those teams like don't really make sense, like the Bulls, unless they're going to move on from Vucevic. Right. Is Mo Bamba going to sign with the Bulls to back up old Vucci again? I don't see that happening. Is he going to go to the Raptors to like compete for the starting center role with like Kem Birch again? I don't think that's going to happen. The Lakers aren't going to have money like to pay anybody. The Rockets, like, now they have Alperen Şengün. Is he going to go to Houston just to be a backup? The Knicks, who knows what the hell the freaking Knicks are doing. The Heat, if it happens to be the Heat, you will hear me say some mean things about Mo Bamba. People will say, if a team doesn't want you, you're free to go wherever you want. That is correct, unless it's the freaking Miami Heat, two doors down from us. That will not fly. You don't get to leave the Magic and go play for the Heat immediately right after. Maybe a few years, and then by happenstance you end up there. That's one thing. You don't leave Orlando, move to Miami, and be cool with me. That will not happen. Hopefully that's not the case. I would rather see him on any team on planet Earth. I would rather see him play for the Jiangdong Tigers or whoever it is in China before he plays for the Miami Heat. So hopefully that doesn't come to fruition. But how do you feel about Mo? Like, at this point, it feels like we put out a poll today. It was like 71% of Magic fans want the Magic to re-sign Mo Bamba at this point because there doesn't seem like a ton of better options out there.
Yeah, I think that's where I'm at. We talked about it on the last episode, man. You kind of look at that free agent. It's different if it's another free agency class. That changes everything. But as far as like the backup center market, especially, it's like, what are you gonna do? I mean, the only report really we've even heard is Isaiah Hartenstein, and so I don't know, man. I don't know what's
a fun name to say.
Yeah, Hartenstein. You gotta have that Stein and that
Stein.
But yeah, I mean that's the thing.
Wagendage and Hartenstein.
Perfect. It's strong, but we'll see. I don't know. I think that at this point I'm on board with just bringing back Mo. Obviously, if Mo's back, he probably is coming back under the impression that he's going to be the backup. So I think that that would mean that he understands and he's going to do that. I'm just kind of surprised. I mean, he must think that he will battle WCJ for that starting role throughout the whole year, but I really don't want to go through that. So I'm very torn, but I think that logically speaking, if you can't get a Hartenstein, then might as well just bring Mo back.
Yeah, if he comes back, to me, it's definitely underneath the understanding that he is the backup. And what it comes down to for me, and part of the reason that kind of just goes into the thinking of not extending the qualifying offer to Mo is because like you like remove that cap hold, which again was like $22 million. So it removes almost all of the cap space that the Magic have to sign other free agents. So if you're looking to re-sign a Gary Harris or, Mo Bamba and someone else, this gives you the cap space to be able to operate and kind of do that. And we also got news today that the cap was coming in a little bit higher, like $1.6 million higher than what was expected. So the Magic have, it by estimations, different people have different numbers, but somewhere between like 27 and just under $30 million in projected cap space this offseason. So it's going to be interesting to see what happens. For me, Jeff Weltman always talks about continuity.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And you don't want too many guys to be out the door. Like, at some point, we expect Terrence Ross to be gone. If Gary Harris isn't coming back, if Robin Lopez isn't coming back, like, right. You do want to keep a good amount of continuity on this roster. And I still think as good as the culture has been the last year, it's only been a year. I don't know that 1 year is enough for me to be like, oh, yeah, we're good now. We can just start like interchanging parts and the culture is going to be totally fine. And I do think that Mo Bamba is important to the culture here. Like, you can say whatever you want about his effort and like his consistency. Just in terms of like a locker room guy, they all love Mo Bamba. Mm-hmm. And I know that maybe that's not the most important thing in the world, but like you talk about Cole, you talk about Jalen, you talk about, Chuma, especially he's in one of Chuma's like upcoming music videos. They all love Mo Bamba. Cole, Anthony, and Mo have been friends for a really long time, and especially if you're going to keep Cole here for the rest of the year, which we all think. Outside of that, I really don't know, but I think it's still important to keep most of this locker room intact, like at least for one more year. And I'm not saying just run it back for the sake of running back, but I do think if you start disrupting the roster too much at this point, there is a chance to kind of lose some of that culture, especially if you don't necessarily bring in the right guys.
Yeah, I think it's a tricky thing. I think there's just so many components when it comes to Mo, and we don't know what those conversations have been like, but it sounds like he wants to come back, which tells me he understands his role. And they've kind of hammered that down, I'm sure, especially if it's going to be a multi-year deal. I'm just hoping that, if it is a multi-year deal, it's something that's reasonable. It's something that is tradable. That this team is very young, and the cream is going to rise to the top for sure. And you got to be able to deal with those contracts and have favorable ones. And after that Dell contract that he has, that this front office agreed to with him, I trust that this front office is going to sign him to a good number, not one that's too much. And then I do believe, and again, prefacing, I don't know much of anything about cap, but I believe that Philip Rossman-Reich of Orlando Magic Daily was talking about on Twitter today that the Magic have to spend like 90% or something like that of essentially the
cap floor.
Yeah, the cap floor. So, and the floor is what, like 120 something? And they're at 92 as it is right now.
You keep talking.
Yeah, I think that right now, I think it was like they're at 91 or 92, and then you have to...
It's 90% of the salary cap they'd have to spend.
Right, and the cap is going to ideally be, not ideally, but presumptively be like 121 or 122. So we'll see. They've got to spend money, essentially, is what it boils down to. So if you see Mo gets a little bit more than you're comfortable with, it's probably just to do with the fact that they're trying to do that. And meet those numbers and do what they can. So you had a good tweet today. Is basically if you trusted the Magic front office yesterday, then trust them today. And that
nothing to me is nothing has changed.
No, and you're still going to trust them through it. And they are great at drawing up those contracts, coming to the agreements that is good for both sides. I trust this front office. If they re-sign Mo, I don't blame them. I take a look at the draft class. And I'm like, yeah, of course, like it makes sense. I'm not a big Mo guy, but when it comes down to it, you could do a lot worse for a backup center.
And I just want to come back to this. Like, I'm not saying that like the disrupting the team chemistry should be like the most important thing. To me, it's like one of the last things that they should worry about, especially as it pertains to Mo.
Yeah.
But I do think it should be a factor into the decision making. And just going back to your point about Wendell Carter, the 4-year, $50 million deal that he signed last year, which again decreases year over a year. The reports from rival executives last year that it was going to be like 4 years, like $75 million. And we were all like, what? 70? It was like $70 or $75 million. And we're like, we like Wendell, but $70+ million? Like, what is going on there? And we were like, it's a little early. Now, let's say we sign him to like a 1-year deal and then he plays the way he did this year. This year, I could understand signing him to like a 4-year, $70+ million deal.
I think you're paying him more too.
Probably. You're probably right.
Yeah.
But last year when we said, okay, it's too early, we were right about that. And the thing about if you are signing Mo Bamba to like a big deal, one, it's probably going to be decreasing like year over year. And money to the Magic, like especially this year, is not really important whatsoever. Like even if they get pretty close to the salary cap, I don't think it's a big deal because of the fact that a lot of these guys are, they're going to be able to move a lot of these guys. So if they need to get off of contracts and go after like a big fish, they're going to do everything they can to maintain that flexibility. So when the right opportunity presents itself, they can capitalize on that.
Yep.
So really the only guy that has been tied to the Magic in free agency, if it's not Mo Bamba that's re-signing, which I think we both agree is still probably the most likely instance, especially for like the backup center role, is the Clippers' Isaiah Hartenstein. And we're going to talk about him just a little bit here. So he's been in the league for 4 seasons now. He's played for Houston. He's played for Denver. He's played for Cleveland. And each one of those stints didn't play like a crazy amount. In his second year in the league, in between Houston and Denver, played a total of, like 46 games. No, that was Denver and Cleveland, excuse me. That was last season, the 2020-2021 season. 46 games last season. Played 68 games as the backup center this past year for the Los Angeles Clippers. Averaged 8.3 points per game, 4.9 rebounds, 2.4 assists, 1.1 blocks, shot 62% from the floor, 46% from the three-point line, but it was only on 0.4 attempts. So not a crazy big sample size for him, but at least has shown some potential there. Now there's all kinds of crazy defensive metrics, just in terms of like his rim protection. He's like one of the best like stats like since like 2013 in terms of like rim protection this year. The film shows that he can be somewhat of a versatile defender. Occasionally, playing guys out on the wing. He's not going to be like a Drew Holiday or anything like that out there, like the guy's a center, but shown flashes just in terms of rim protection and even a little bit of playmaking. Like the passing tape on Isaiah is actually gets me excited if that is the move. I don't think like the almost 40 something per almost 47% from the 3-point line. I don't think that is realistic. Like right now for his career, he's sitting at 38% on 0.3 attempts per game. So like once every 3 games he's taking a 3. I wouldn't even say he's a better shot, like a better 3-point shooter than Mo Bamba right now.
No shot.
But it's exciting that the potential for him to grow into that could be there.
He's young.
But what really gets me excited about him is like the rim protection, the playmaking, the defensive versatility, high motor, which is something that people have ragged on Mo Bamba about. So, but there's a lot of speculation. He is, in terms of like the backup center market, he's one of the most like highly touted targets for quite a number of teams. There's I know that the Clippers are perhaps signing John Wall, which is crazy to think about as well, that he's going to be there with Paul George and Kawhi, and who knows what's going to happen there. They just gave Ivica Zubac a new deal there in LA, or they're going to at the start of free agency. It's just all reported so far. But maybe he still ends up in LA. Who really knows? I don't know that it's incredibly likely that he ends up here. We've already talked about the fact that we think it's probably going to be Mo Bamba. But if it's not, and they can get Isaiah here, he's German. We've got Franz. We've got Moritz. I don't want to say like is less German, but he's not like native German. Like his parents are, I think his father is German. I think his father was you said he was like a German coach and played professionally overseas, I think you said before we started recording. So, it's exciting to think about. I think it's a really good option if it's not Mo. I think my preference would still be that it's Mo. But, it's exciting that the Magic are, potentially bringing in a somewhat sought-after free agent.
Yeah. I think time will tell, obviously, as we go into the day today. But it will be interesting. I'm interested to see if Mo does walk or it's a sign and trade, which would be the expected route for sure. And then to see what Isaiah Hartenstein kind of gets in terms of if it is with the Magic. So I don't know. He's coming off a year where I think he made just like $1 million. But like I said, he's still young. Who knows kind of what the market will be for him.
Just $1 million.
Yeah, just a measly $1 million. So I don't know, man. We'll see. It's going to be interesting. It's going to be a fun day. I don't know if I'm going to be able to think straight.
So did you say that like you think it's most likely that we sign and trade Mo? Like you think that's more or am I hearing you? Did I mishear you?
No, I just mean in general. Like I don't think that they just let him walk. I think it's going to be that he gets signed and stays, or it's a sign and trade. I would say that he gets signed, much like you think. So, but if he does, I think it is a sign and trade route. At least I would hope.
I just think there's so much worse you could do as a backup center than Mo Bamba.
Yeah.
Like the biggest knock on Mo is like, oh, he gets kind of pushed around down low. Being the backup 5, you're not going to be going against Embiid. You're not going to be going against Jokic and Steven Adams and Jonas Valanciunas and Nurkic and like some of these other big centers. And the kid can still shoot. He's still a great rim protector. Mm-hmm. He still has value. He knows what the Magic are going to ask of him. He's familiar with all the guys. He's good for, the chemistry. Everybody on the team likes him. So there's much worse that you could do for Mo Bamba. But I will say, if he's re-signed, I don't expect him to be here any more than another year or maybe 2. Like even if it's a 3 or 4 year deal, I don't think he's here for the length of the next contract.
Especially if Dell continues to improve as we think, right? I just think that Mo is going to eventually get to him where he's like, no, I'm better than just a backup center in this league, and I want to try to go prove it. So I could see that happening too. So it's interesting. I don't know what's going on between the ears of Mo Bamba, what Greer Love is telling him as his agent. I have no idea, but I would love to know. But I have no idea what the future is going to look like for Mo. But regardless of what happens, wish him the best.
Yeah, and then just in a couple of years here, at really the end of next year, you have to decide on Cole Anthony, Chuma Okeke, and RJ Hampton, whether or not you want to sign those guys to extensions or if you want to let them get to restricted free agency, in the summer of 2024. So, that's something to keep in mind as well. Philip Rossman-Reich actually said this on his podcast today or yesterday, like, coming down the road, there are some bills due. So you've got to have that cap flexibility to retain those guys if you want to, or if you want to retain those assets just to be able to trade them and swap them for other assets down the line. There's so much to think about being a GM, and I know they have like cap experts in every single front office, but we say this every week. I don't envy these guys whatsoever for the decisions they have to make and how much crap they have to balance to try to keep a team competitive and build it for the future. I would never sleep. I would have a heart attack at 35 years old if I was working for one of these teams. It's honestly really crazy, all the stuff that, oh my gosh.
Grueling schedule.
And then you could be a GM and you think you're doing the right thing. You're putting a super team together of KD, Harden, and Kyrie Irving. The next thing you know, Harden wants out and Kyrie Irving won't get the shot, so he can't play, and then he doesn't know if he wants to opt in, and then he's like the leader of tomorrow all of a sudden opting into his contract. Just the most bizarre thing ever. And then Laker fans are like, oh my gosh, we're getting Kyrie for $8 million next year, and then all of a sudden he hops in at like his $40 million contract. You guys never had a chance in hell to get Kyrie, man. It's just so funny. But anyways, free agency basically starts tomorrow at 6 o'clock. And then I'm still kind of cloudy on the moratorium. Has the league actually even came out and said that free agency starts tomorrow? Because I've been hearing kind of mixed signals on that.
Well, you see
it might start at 6 o'clock. It might start on midnight of July 1st. Is there? I'm going to look it up right now.
I think
if there's
they
like
both
an
mean
official free
something,
agency
but
start.
I really don't know because you've seen like people say. I think Keith Smith was like he'll become an unrestricted. Mo Bamba will become an unrestricted free agent July 1st. So I don't know what any of it means. Like I said, I'm not going to act like I know what that means, and you guys can let us know if we can't figure it out here.
SportingNews.com. It says the free agency will officially open Thursday, June 30th at 6 p.m. So up until yesterday, when I was looking, there still wasn't anything
Right.
like in set in stone on that. I'm looking up when the moratorium ends for this free agency period. So the moratorium period ends July 6th. So that's when teams can officially start to sign, guys, is going to be July 6th at 12:01 in the afternoon Eastern time. So we're going to hear all of these different agreements starting tomorrow at 6 o'clock, but they can't sign until July 6th, which is, I never worried about this until the DeAndre Jordan thing happened years ago. And now it's just like anything can happen. Even though a guy agrees to terms with a team, he's got basically like 6 days to change his mind. And that's just terrifying. I don't like that one bit.
No, especially
Like
if you're happy with that
hands,
signing.
you should be able to sign on the dotted line.
Back in our day, all it took was a handshake.
That's right, baby. All right, Luke, tomorrow's free agency. If anything crazy happens, we'll set up an emergency podcast. I mean, we've talked about this. I don't know what is really in the cards for the Magic that could warrant an emergency podcast. Like maybe if they happen to sign Anthony Simons, maybe that, because people are going to go nuts about that. Unless it's a crazy big free agent signing or if it's a crazy trade like we saw today with the Hawks and the Spurs. DeJounte Murray now going to the Atlanta Hawks for Dalino Gallinari, and I think it's like three or four planned picks, but whatever. But anyways, Luke, I think that's going to do it for us this week.
Yep, that's all I got.
On to free agency. For Luke Sylvia, this has been Jonathan Osborne. You guys are listening to The Sixth Man Show. We will catch you guys next time. See ya.
Thanks for listening to The Sixth Man Show. Be sure to subscribe on iTunes, Spotify, Google Play, and Stitcher to get new episodes downloaded directly to your phone. Please take a minute to give us a 5-star rating and a review. It would really help us out a lot. Follow us on Twitter and Instagram at Sixth Man Show and like us on Facebook. We'll catch you guys next time. Go Magic.